The first Injustice was a pretty good game. It had took the rebooted Mortal Kombat formula and applied it to the DC universe, providing a what-if story if circumstances caused Superman to turn to the dark side. It was fun. It was a competitive level fighter. Wasn't groundbreaking, but still a successful game overall. With Injustice 2, though, NetherRealm Studios has taken a really big leap, and this is perhaps one of their greatest games. As someone who's not competitive, this game provides so much single player content that I haven't been this satisfied with a fighting game since Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast. So let's take a look at what makes this game so good and so worth your money. Injustice 2's story takes place a while after the first game's story. And if you're interested, I'm sure you could find like a movie view of the first game online if you haven't played the first one. I definitely recommend that you play the first one before you play this. And I also recommend that you read the comic books that are tied directly in with this. With that being said, Injustice 2's story is just like the Mortal Kombat stories where it's presented extremely well. The production values are excellent. This is kind of the best way to tell a story in fighting games. NetherRealm has really took the cake in this case. But in terms of the actual content of the story, without the comic books, without that prior knowledge of the last game, I think a lot of the stuff will be lost on you. So I definitely recommend reading those comics if you can, and for sure playing the first game. But regardless, it's set up pretty much the same way. This time Brainiac is invading this universe, and Superman has been in prison, and so it's up to Batman to try to stand up to Brainiac and his forces. It's going to lead you to various fights. And in a lot of the fights, you're going to get to pick who you want to fight the battles. And that's pretty cool. Like I say, it works if you are completely invested in the Injustice universe. But the less you're invested, the less you're going to get out of it. Things happen that without that context is not that good. But overall, really solid storyline and one of the best presented storylines I've ever seen in a fighting game. One of the biggest new things about Injustice 2 is the gear system. Now, this essentially allows you to customize any of the fighters with specific pieces of gear that have stats tied to them. That also changes the look of the various fighters, giving you ownership of the fighter. When I first saw this introduced, I thought it was going to break the game or make it not fun. But it's actually the complete opposite. This gives you a ton of investment to keep playing the game. And most of the modes in the game tie into this gear system. You get these kind of loot boxes, gold, silver, platinum. The different gear pieces kind of vary from common to epic and legendary. And it gives you that kind of grindy experience that encourages you to keep playing the game. Along with that, there's another awesome thing that they do with this gear system, and that's tie something called premium costumes to the characters as well. Now, what this does is, say, take a character like the Flash, real popular right now. And, Flash is a good character to have in the game, but I bet you there's some people who wish Reverse Flash was in the game. Well, what they did in this game is provide Reverse Flash as a premium skin. So you can buy a skin that looks like Reverse Flash with the same gameplay as the regular Flash. But it isn't just a costume. His dialogue is that of the Reverse Flash as well. And they do this with many characters. Like with Hal Jordan, you could buy a premium costume of him to get John Stewart. A character like Captain Cold, Oh, you don't like him? Well, buy his premium costume and get Mr. Freeze. Now, that brings me to one of my only gripes with Injustice 2, and that's the various currencies. They're kind of hard to understand and make sense of. But it's not just that. With the premium costumes in particular, they the amount of currency you get for playing the game on the regular is not enough to really get those premium costumes easily. And I don't mean easy like in a cheap way. I mean like you would really have to grind in an incredibly amount of time to get those premium costumes, all the ones that are available. That's really trying to drive you to just go ahead and pay real world money to buy the source crystals so that you could get your hands on the premium costume skins. And they was kind of dirty with it. If you beat the game story mode, that's typically enough to get at least one premium costume. But there are so many, and if you already interested in this game, you're gonna want all of them. So it was smart on NetherRealm's part, and it's really cool when you do get the premium costumes. I think they're worth it, but they hid something super cool, kind of behind a paywall, and I'm not crazy about that. But overall, the gear system is just it's just an excellent way to add more play to this game. Now, another thing about the game that adds even more content, even more single player content that I was talking about earlier, is the multiverse mode, which is pretty much the same as the Living Towers from the recent Mortal Kombat games, but they tie into the gear system as well. See, they'll add the multiverse like in the comics, various universes with different versions of heroes. And you could go in and complete challenges. And I mean, these challenges could vary, the stages could shift, you could call in a tag partner. All kind of things can happen within these multiverse towers that can change by the hour or by a day or so. It's really cool, but it also unlocks more gear. Like they'll have a particularly hard one unlock legendary gear for a particular character. What this does is provide you even more reasons to play single player beyond just training for the competitive scene. It is brilliant that they did this. One of the best modes I've seen for single players since the Soul Calibur mission mode, I believe it was called, way back when. Also within this, there's a traditional arcade ladder, which every character can get individual arcade ending, which is excellent too. So on top of the story mode, on top of the gear system and the living towers, traditional arcade ladders with endings for all your characters, which all in all provides you plenty incentive to play as a single player. And that doesn't include the short tutorials for each individual character. NetherRealm really pulled out all the stops for this. And they gotta be applauded overall for their effort here. So one of the most important parts of a fighting game is its roster. And Injustice 2 absolutely knocks this out of the park. One of the best rosters I've seen for this licensed type of game. They don't just have the mainstream heroes from DC like Superman and Batman. They also have less known characters like Firestorm and Swamp Thing, Captain Cold, Damian Wayne, Robin, Black Canary, Flash. On top of that, you have all the premium costumes as well that add even more characters. Even the DLC characters selection is just awesome. I can't argue with their roster at all. I love the variety of play styles that the characters offer. They really got to be applauded for their roster here. And to go along with that, the game looks excellent, surprisingly excellent. A massive step up from the first Injustice. One of the best looking games that are out right now. It runs very smooth, and the gears the way they affect the character's appearance, you could really make these characters your own. And with the variety of heroes and villains found here, you're bound to find a character that fits your play style, or if you have a favorite from DC's comic lore, you're gonna definitely find somebody to play with and like here. The super moves are once again insane, and just really impressive all around. I do kind of wish they had more than one major special move, but you know, that's not anything major. This is excellent stuff here, and other fighting games can definitely learn from Injustice 2. Injustice 2's online works fine. They have the various modes from King of the Hill, traditional rank matches, player matches. Um, Assuming that your connection is strong and your opponents is strong, the matches run good. I've had a lot of fights online. Well, not a ton, but I had a decent amount, and most of the battles went real smooth. No complaints in the online department here. If you want to enter a mode where your stats from your gear work, you can do that. If you just want to have your gear in there for cosmetic purposes, it allows options for that as well. Overall, you can't complain with the online here. Injustice 2 knocks it out the park in that area as well. Look, for $60, you're getting a lot of game here. And I mean, that's not easy to call for from a fighting game, but Injustice 2 earns its price tag. This is AAA fighting game, you know, sauce here. I mean, there's enough here for if you want to enter the competitive scene, but it's also easy enough to approach for someone who casually wants to play. There's enough single player content for someone who casually wants to play. And there's a bunch of beasts waiting for you online. Overall, the gameplay doesn't change much from Injustice 1. All the transitions are still there. Interactive environments, all that's still there. It's not a dramatically different game in terms of mechanics. It's just polished to a sharp sheen with an even better roster, even more solid features. And that's not much I could really argue with the game on, other than them being nudging the player to get that DLC, and the story not really hitting unless you're completely invested in all the extra comics in the first game. All in all, though, Injustice 2 is one of the best values for a fighting game I've seen, and easily gets a 9 out of 10. So, hope you enjoyed the review. I'm going to hit you with another one coming soon. Peace.